boardroom. This is the business of esports. As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner yougov offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. yougov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with yougov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports weekly news show / post-podcast live stream. I am Paul Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, the Honorable Judge Jimmy Baratta, Jeff the Juice Cohen, Lindsay the Boss Poss. For those of you who are new here, welcome. What we do is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. But best of all, we get to do it live with you guys. You get to get in our faces, ask questions, challenge us, however you want to participate. If you want to lurk, that's okay too. But we encourage you to get involved, ask questions, comment. It makes it that much more fun for everyone. How is everyone doing this week? Lindsay?
I'm doing so good. I have an important announcement, and that's that I'll be missing at least the next live stream, possibly the next two, because I'm going on vacation. And like a dummy, I keep booking my flights for Wednesdays.
This is terrible news. This is not good news.
Know. Well, it's good for me, bad for everyone else. But I plan on.
And you shouldn't announce this ahead of time.
Now no one's gonna show up.
Yeah,
it up by
she's still gonna be here next week, guys. Don't worry. Lindsay will be here next week.
In spirit, yes. But yeah, I plan on not booking flights for Wednesdays anymore. I've learned my lesson.
Terrible. They still fly on Thursdays. You could have just done it the day after.
I know. I didn't even do it on purpose. I don't know what happened. Blacked out.
They also have Wi-Fi on planes, so just unacceptable either way.
I'm sure my overnight red-eye flight would just love if I did a live stream.
That actually would be good. We'd get viewers from the plane. I mean, how is that not a great idea?
Really happy viewers, I'm sure.
You could advertise seat to seat, just go down the aisle. You're like, guys, we're going live. 8:30.
A little candy bag saying like, "Oh, I'm sorry, my kid's loud." It's gonna be like, "Oh, tune into this thing."
Yeah. I love it. Jeff, how you doing?
I am doing much better right now. A friend of mine just texted me and said that my hair was looking really good and it was better than my black hat I normally wear. So I appreciate that.
Are we done with the Swedish hat?
No, it's coming back next week. I actually thought I was having a good hair day, so I figured I would, let the viewers see my luscious mane of law.
It's kind of a backhanded compliment, though, right? He's like, "Hey, you look good, better than your normal self."
Yeah. I took it as a compliment.
Jimmy, how is your hair doing today?
I'm out of the loop. I mean, it looks like you got a new haircut, Paul. Jeff is like all styling. Lindsay's this golden, just shimmering, corner of my screen, and I haven't done anything since I woke up, so I don't know. Most of our listeners are audio only, so I'm thankful for that.
And I'm sure they're thankful that we're having this conversation.
Yeah, this is really Business of Esports. Yeah, if you're tuning in for the first time,
it's like, what is going on right now?
We normally cover the news.
Robert says, hey Robert, great to see you. Kevin says, Jimmy's hair is always on point. There you go.
Thanks, Kevin.
Got a fan in Kevin. All right, guys, let's before I jump in, a little bit of a tease. This week we have 2 episodes of Business of Esports coming out. The amount of content you guys are going to get, like This is spoiling to the extreme. You're going to get 2 podcast episodes. You're going to get an episode of Office Hours every Wednesday, which I love that everyone's been listening to it or watching it and sending feedback. You should watch it, by the way, because the production value is so good. We have William behind a professor's desk and everything with graphics in the back. So you're going to get 2 episodes of the podcast this week. You can get an episode of Office Hours, and you're going to get this live stream from Business of Esports this week. So 4 pieces of content this week, which is a lot of fun. On those 2 podcast episodes, we actually had, so obviously 2 different guests. The first was Omar Batterjee, who is the head of partnerships and business development at the Saudi Esports Federation. So you guys have heard me talk a lot about esports in the GCC region and how bullish I am there. But Omar from the Saudi Esports Federation was an amazing guest, spent a lot of time talking about gaming and esports in the Middle East. And then the second episode you have to look forward to is Kyle Pendergast, who's the CEO and co-founder of a very, very cool company. God, why am I drawing a blank? Help me out,
Beyond
Jimmy.
Ranked.
Beyond Ranked. I just did the episode. I'm like, too many episodes. Beyond Ranked, very cool. They basically, I actually love this. We may even use it for our own purposes. But like if you're gaming with your friends, you have a tournament, you have clips that you've clipped of yourself gaming, they can add a layer of commentator. So they bring in a commentator who will commentate your clips, your matches, your tournaments, your games on top of it to give it that like really professional, entertaining kind of look. Which is a lot of fun. I feel like we need to do gaming streams and have commentators, Can
they clip like every time I juice? Like they can just clip that. I can.
And then
tweet
some guy do have a commentary on top of it, like the juice. Like
I was thinking for our lightning rounds too. Like, oh, Jeff really stuck at that one. Or, I don't know.
It should be interesting. Both episodes are great, guys. I highly recommend listening to both of them. Very different, but both very interesting. Simp Orphan says hi. Hello, welcome. All right, guys. We jump into some news here. Have we messed around long enough? We can talk about some news. What is this? This is
I hacked your own account.
Oh no!
Delete that.
This, all right. So, evidently a fan of the juice. Who's bringing this up here? All right, let me share my screen, guys, and let's talk about some news stories because that's what people are here for. And I think we start with let's start with Riot Games in the news. I think Riot, a favorite of ours, obviously, to talk about, and always fans of some of the things they're doing. And this headline is from Polygon, and the headline is Riot Games invests in the animation studio behind Arcane. So Fortiche, I don't know, it's a weird name. Fortiche Production and Riot Games take their partnership to the next level. They would invest in it says longtime partner, Fortiche Production, the Paris-based animation studios responsible for Arcane, as well as numerous League-related videos. Riot now owns a significant non-controlling stake in the studio, with 2 Riot executives joining Fortiche's board of directors. The article goes on to list some of the other things they've done. I will just give you the quote from the CEO of Riot, Nicolas Laurent. He says, Fortiche has been an integral partner for a long time, but this agreement ensures we'll be working closely for decades to come. In working with Fortiche, we collaborate to push the boundaries of what's possible and raise expectations for how games can be represented in media. As proud as we are of Arcane, we know the best is yet to come. So, guys, I want to just frame this in a little bit of context. I think we discussed, was it last week, Epic buying Bandcamp or whatever, right? That online music store. In that context, right, where you see a gaming company branching out into some other form of entertainment and making an acquisition or an investment. Where do you put this against that? And like, what's the thought on this acquisition specifically, maybe in isolation also, or this investment, I should say? Jimmy?
Can we keep this story up actually, Paul? Because I like going through these kind of. I've noticed on a lot of my calls as well. It's always fun to have it up as we're talking through it sometimes. You know, the one thing that I loved about this is that it was like Riot doubling down on something that they had tried out before, right? Longtime partner was a key word. They had used them for Arcane. We had talked also when Arcane first came out about that really being the tip of the iceberg, not just for Riot and their content that they're going to come out with in other media, but also for other games that are probably in development and being, in various stages of their production life cycle. And so, this is I think it shows, or rather it's worth saying, like, the massive success of Arcane probably led to this, as well as who knows what other projects they have working, under their belt, under wraps. But it really is Riot, I think, continuing to lead the space and say, hey, we're trying new things, we're creating new content. It's all a massive success because what we do is awesome and our fans are awesome. And these aren't just one-off things. We're going to get behind it, double down, do more.
Yeah, I totally agree with Jimmy. I mean, this almost feels like absolutely it almost, when I saw the headline, I was actually surprised that they hadn't already invested in this company. Because I know they do have a big media division and that's a big focus for them. So I almost was like, wow, how did they not do this already? But yeah, I think in the context of the question you asked, Paul, around this versus the Epic acquisition, I'm always kind of the Epic defender on the panel. I think this is a much better fit. I mean, to me, the Arcane show has been a smash hit. There's been a ton of kind of crossover, this transmedia space in the last year, really since The Witcher, which I guess was maybe 2 years ago, has absolutely blown up. It feels like every video game now has a media kind of streaming crossover, which I think is great. Hopefully the quality will continue to be good, because I think whenever you start to see an acceleration of a trend like this, I always get a little worried that you're getting people kind of following and cash grabbing, and I think we might start to see the quality decrease a little bit. But to me, this is right down the fairway for what Riot should be doing. The what is it? House Party. What was the Epic acquisition? Bandcamp. Yeah, I mean, that one we talked about last time, but it is a bit more. We're gonna have to wait and see what the strategy is there. I think it's possible they have an interesting music strategy, but it's not as kind of cut and dry in my opinion.
Does anyone think, like, so, my take on this is way more genius than the whole Bandcamp thing. Like, it's a way better fit. But is anyone thrown off a little bit by the fact that this was an investment and a minority stake, or at least it's a non-controlling stake? Like, why wouldn't Riot just buy them outright? Anyone have thoughts on why? Like, is there a lack of conviction? Like, maybe the gravy train on sort of Netflix content comes to an end and they won't need this anymore, so it doesn't make sense to buy them or spend, to acquire them outright?
I mean, sorry, or Lindsay, you go first. It looks like you were trying to say something.
Oh yeah, I thought the opposite, actually. I thought that them taking a non-controlling stake and putting people on the board said that they really trusted this company to continue to create smash hits and smash success. Arcane was perhaps a once in a lifetime success, but also if I were looking at companies and who I wanted to partner with, I would pick the company that created the most popular series on Netflix ever. When you asked about the comparison to Epic buying Bandcamp, this would be like if Bandcamp controlled all of Travis Scott's concerts or something. If Bandcamp had anything that was as big of a smash success as Arcane and Fortiche have had, then we're talking about a completely different story. But I thought that the way that they went about the acquisition actually showed a lot of trust in the company to continue creating really, really great products, because we know that Riot really prioritizes that over all else.
So no one thinks there's maybe a lack of conviction here?
No, I mean, I think Lindsay's take was really good. It wasn't exactly the direction I was going to go. I was thinking maybe it's a lot of conviction on the part of, I guess, how do you pronounce it? Fortis. Maybe they didn't want to
Fortiche?
sell, right? And obviously Riot has the money. Like, there's always a dollar number, but these guys just came off a massive smash hit, and they might not want to cash out. They may want to, they may have other projects going on or whatnot that aren't Riot related. So they may
True.
just have a lot of conviction in what they're doing. But yeah, so it's never as simple as it seems, I guess.
All right, guys, I just want to read some of these comments and then we'll move on. Matt says, don't worry, everybody, I'm here and hopefully in time for the gaming chair segment. Don't worry, Matt, that's coming. I got a special one just for the juice himself. Matt says, I knew Paul would be salivating over this story. It's so industry indifferent. It is a good story. All right, guys, let's talk about Nintendo in the news. And this is, I thought, again, in the context of gaming extending outside of gaming, I think let's stay with this theme to start here. And the headline here is Universal Studios Hollywood opens Super Nintendo World in 2023. So Universal Studios Hollywood announced, this is last Thursday, that the Super Nintendo World area will open at the park in 2023. The park's feature presentation store will open with exclusive Nintendo-themed merchandise soon. Construction's underway near the Transformers site. And they opened the Super Nintendo World in Japan in March of 2021. So this has been delayed a few years, obviously, because of COVID. It says the first phase is going to have 2 rides named Super Mario Kart Ride and Yoshi's Adventure. You're going to get magnetic power-up bands that allow you to interact with the attractions, such as hitting real-life blocks. And the wristbands are able to keep track of scores, including a park-wide ranking board, coins and stars from various rides, and they're able to interact with a game console. So what sounds like a pretty cool section of Universal Studios coming in 2023. Who loves this for Nintendo? Who thinks like they seem to be doing the most complicated thing, not the most obvious, like a TV show or something? Like, what's your take on Super Nintendo World opening at Universal Studios Hollywood?
It's a big swing, like you said. It's not something safe like a show, though they are doing the movie too, I guess. But it's definitely a big swing, outside the box kind of thinking. It clearly had it in development for a long time, because the biggest question here is like, well, the world has been, an unstable place recently for live events and things of this nature. But that's nothing that they could have predicted or planned around. You see the massive success of Star Wars Land, of Harry Potter World, and it's pretty cool to see gaming throw their hat into the ring there. I'm particularly excited to see the merch opportunities that come out of this, not just what you can do when you're there, but what Mario hats or gloves, or I don't know, I just like buying things. I want to go to Disneyland and buy all the lightsabers. I want to buy, you know what I mean? Want to go get my Harry Potter wand at Harry Potter World. So I'm curious, besides the wristbands, which are kind of like a keepsake souvenir, what the merch angle is going to be, because that's the point. The point, I guess, is to have fun, but it's really for Universal and Nintendo to make a lot of money, and they're not just going to do that on sales. They need to keep you entertained. Is there some take-home opportunity where maybe that wristband gets me access to the same kind of leadership boards for a metaverse online, experience thereafter? I don't know where they're growing it. It's very new, but a lot of buzz and excitement. It's certainly going to be expensive.
Oh.
Jeff, you had thoughts on this?
Well, I was going to say, I love the metaverse, toss in there. I think that would be an interesting thing to have a digital version as well. But what I was going to say is that I love this for Nintendo, because I think it could have the potential to bring in kind of a younger demographic. And I think that maybe sounds weird, because we always think about Nintendo as like a kid's brand, but I kind of think it's a kid's brand for people who were kids 25, 30 years ago. And I think you're going to have a lot of people who grew up with Nintendo who now have young kids bring their kids to Super Nintendo World. And a lot of those kids who are currently playing Roblox or currently on Fortnite maybe get into Nintendo more than they would have, because they have this kind of formative experience with a brand that maybe their parents love or know more than they do. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of just the first thing that popped into my head.
You think the entry point is the theme parks? Because I feel like theme parks are the ultimate like brand extension, not necessarily like where you go to discover something.
So usually I agree, and I think it's the brand extension for like the adult that grew up with Nintendo. But I feel like if you're like a 7 to maybe 5 to 15-year-old kid right now, you don't really care that much about Nintendo. Just like not, I don't know. That could be wrong. I don't know if that's correct or not, but I feel like Nintendo's an older audience.
You got Zelda Breath of the Wild. You got Animal Crossing. I'm blanking.
No, I'm not trying to say that Nintendo's not had amazing hits recently, but it feels to me like a lot of those appeal to people who grew up playing Nintendo, not necessarily that are like kids now. I have no data to back that up, obviously.
I just want to take a poll, like of the three of you guys, and in chat also, of all the brand extensions Nintendo could have done, movie, TV show, more merch, like whatever brand extension you can imagine, how many of you like theme parks above the others? Like where do you rank theme park in sort of the best brand extensions you think Nintendo could do? Well, Lindsay, you're a big Nintendo fan, right?
Yeah, and this is difficult because they have the movie coming out soon. And so a natural extension of movies is theme parks. So this is a little bit like, I'm not sure. I feel like this is actually going to be good timing because the movie, I believe, is supposed to be released this year, and then the theme park opens next year. So it's kind of the natural progression of what kind of usually happens with the way theme parks work and the kind of media they interact with. To your point, Paul, I am, I suppose, a little surprised that they went the theme park route before a kid's cartoon, which seems very obvious. But I actually was thinking about this. I wrote a case in business school for Ben & Jerry's to open an ice cream themed theme park. So I'm just evidently very pro theme park. And I love Harry Potter world and Star Wars world and all of those things. So it's hard for me to see past my own personal bias and not be like, as soon as you read this, I was like, oh yeah, I want to go to that for sure. So I'm definitely excited about it. And to what Jeff said, yeah, it definitely might help, people who are nostalgic for the brand, bringing their kids and bringing younger generation into it. I feel like I would need a lot more data to know if this is the right business decision or not.
I feel like theme parks are they're more analogous to YouTube, right? And we've talked about this on the podcast proper, in that theme parks are a monetization engine, right? It's where you get fans to go to sell them stuff and tickets and merch, and like that's where you have them like captive, where you can sell them a bunch of stuff. But it's not necessarily like a growth engine, right? It's not where you create new fans.
Right.
And so like the bigger business question is, what is Nintendo's greater problem? Is it not enough growth of the baseline audience, or is it not good enough monetization of that audience? Right? That's sort of, I think, where that decision would hinge.
It's probably both, to be honest.
I was just thinking that too, because we've criticized them a lot for, not really supporting all of their esports titles, and for the Switch not supporting a lot of other crossover games. It's interesting. What I like about it is that what Twitch has shown us is that audiences are looking for new ways to interact with the content creators, right? They want that direct relationship. They want their chat to be displayed on screen. They want, these things where they're a part of the creation process. And I think when you have a theme park, it's just another way to interact with that within that universe that you don't get sitting, alone in your chair in a movie theater, watching a movie or in other forms of IP application. So again, I really like the big swing here. It's not to say that they need one thing or the other, because we criticize Nintendo a lot, and they do things their own way, right? They're to the beat of their own drum, so to speak. But this is something that I think we're all, or at least I'm definitely behind.
Let me get caught up on comments here because I'm way behind, guys. Kevin says Arcane has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes and 9.1 on IMDb. On top of Uncharted, Halo, Witcher, Cuphead, Last of Us, and other video game content coming, it fits the bill, no question, Kevin. I think 100%. Gary says, with that description, I want to go, referring to the description of Nintendo World. Yeah, I mean, it does sound kind of fun. I mean, I'm not a theme park person, but that does sound kind of fun. Gary says, really depends on execution. I agree, right? It could end up being very lame. Also, like, hitting a block could just be some, like, piece of styrofoam hung, you know, like, I don't know what that actually is going to be. Simorphin, smiling. Freddie says, you're mistaken, Jeff. Kids love Nintendo. I see it every day. I don't. Was anyone debating? Like, I don't think we were debating that kids love Nintendo. The question is, are kids discovering Nintendo?
That's
I
fair.
don't know. I'm defending you,
appreciate
Jeff,
you
but, like,
defending me. I think I definitely, made it seem that way. So I appreciate you correcting me, Freddie.
Sim says, I did, referring to Nintendo, I guess. Kevin says, didn't Jeff say something along the lines of, there is a Harry Potter world, not a Nintendo world, a few weeks ago?
See, that's what I'm not going to take, Kevin. Go to the tapes.
Go
Pull the transcripts.
I do believe you may have said something to that effect.
I'm a Harry Potter guy, but I also know, I know what's going on in the gaming world here, so I wouldn't have said that.
Freddie says it's what their parents allow them to play when they have rules. I mean, that is a good reason for them to be on it, and Simp agrees here. Christopher says, metaverses equals digital theme parks, but real theme parks. Let's review that investment opportunity. Come on, guys. Families get to experience video games in real life. Much better experience than a VR helmet. I mean, look, we can discuss what does it cost to build a Nintendo world versus what would it cost to build a VR metaverse Nintendo land? I'm guessing at least one order of magnitude difference, probably two. Like maybe 100 times the cost, I would guess.
To be fair, Nintendo is just licensed it. They didn't put up the capital. It's
Fair.
Universal, but still.
Fair.
Someone's paying for it.
Someone's paying. So I don't. Does anyone disagree with Chris's point here, though, that, let me just read the last point here. Legoland isn't to discover Legos. I agree with, but I think that's what I just said, that the theme parks are not for discovery, they're for monetization.
And that's what I led with, was my favorite part about theme parks is buying all this stuff. Like, I will buy everything. I have multiple things in this room from theme parks that I bought, and all I'm thinking about is going back to the theme park to buy more stuff. It's awesome.
I mean, theme parks are the most profitable part of Disney's business. So it's like, that is everything you guys are saying is definitely correct. On the metaverse digital theme park point, I mean, Chris, you're absolutely right. And I think we're all pretty bullish on that. It's just, this is Nintendo we're talking about. If they're 40 years behind Disney in creating a theme park, they're going to be 50 years behind creating a metaverse theme park. It's just like,
but again, like I said, like where does this lead? Are they also going to do a digital theme park? Is there some overlapping application? Unfortunately, as hard as all of us try, we're never going to get rid of the physical world. So you kind of need both of these things, right? So I just don't think one is better than the other. I think there are all these different types of experiences that lovers of that IP crave, and they're going to complement each other.
Guys, sorry, go ahead, Lindsay.
Oh, this is just an aside, but there was a game at the Pirates baseball stadium one time, like in between innings, where they had to go through a Mario course. Like they sort of projected it on, and then everyone had to hit and jump. And I always wanted to play that, so I'm thinking I'm going to be at Super Mario World.
I also want to take issue with the name Super Mario World. Like, why not, Mario 64 World? Like, why the love for Super Nintendo and not Nintendo 64? Like, they picked a very specific generation, and it almost seems purposeful. Like, it's targeted at people like who are a little bit older, like maybe in their mid to late 30s, who probably have young families, who Super Nintendo rings like they didn't call it, Mario Wii World, right? Like,
I mean, guaranteed there was like a closed research poll, right? Like, and they tested all of these, and it had to be the one. I just think Super Mario rolls off the tongue a lot easier than Mario 64 or Mario Wii.
Guys, let's move on. We do have another short Nintendo story, but I think we'll do it as part of a little like a short lightning round at the end here. So, the juice gets to juice on some lightning round topics. This next story, guys, it was covered by this week's by William, the professor, on this week's episode of Office Hours. So if you want his sort of in-depth take on it, highly recommend listening to that. But it actually just came out today. I want to make sure we talk about it also because I do think it's an interesting development. And the headline here is Ontario to set aside $1 million over 2 years for esports scholarship program. So this is the Ontario government, Ontario province in Canada, says they're launching a new scholarship for post-secondary students enrolled in programs related to esports. It's setting aside $1 million over 2 years, which will offer financial assistance to students in programs related to game design, development, marketing, and innovation industry. The funding will be made available through publicly supported colleges and universities, and it starts this fall. We have seen esports scholarships before being offered by the schools themselves. We've seen them being offered by like individuals who, put together these scholarships to, support maybe a specific subgroup or, a specific type of person within the gaming industry. I think this is the first time I've seen this supported at the government level. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong there. How important is this of a development in your minds in terms of the legitimacy of esports as a career choice? Jimmy, maybe start with you.
Yeah,
Professor at UC Irvine.
When you have any acknowledgement from any organization, depending on certain certain radical groups, it's usually a good thing for an organization to like what you're doing, to approve of you, to verify you. And especially when it's I think a governmental organization, just because that makes you therefore eligible for other government consideration, right? Grants potentially, things of that nature. So,
meaning, should government be giving esports scholarships? Like, is that something they should be meddling in? Does this raise the profile of esports, and we want to see governments everywhere, states in the US, all the provinces in Canada, like even if we keep a North American focus here, is this something we want to see public funding going towards because we believe this is the future?
The should question is difficult to answer because I'm less familiar with other programs that government is currently funding. I would say if you look at whatever body that they've already approved and that they are active with and are funding, does esports meet that? I mean, this is what they did, right? They have a process, they have other funding considerations and other groups of people and initiatives that they get behind. They looked at esports and said it meets all of the same criteria, therefore we're funding it. That's most likely the process that was taken here. So if that's the case, then that's a really big step for esports because it puts it on the same level as tennis or certain academic programs or other extracurriculars that they, again, compared us to and said, yeah, it meets those burdens, it meets that minimum threshold. So, whether or not you're arguing against should the government be spending our tax dollars on kids playing video games, that's a sterner argument that I think opposition to this would pose. And that's then again where we would raise the increased GPAs of gamers, the increased social adaptation in the classroom and confidence and mental health and kind of that socialization that we're seeing sweep through schools. Again, this is a great thing, I think, where a lot of the ed tech companies that we've had on the show in very recent episodes would probably be supportive of this because, again, it's putting their work, their program, and their considerations on par where they're no longer at a disadvantage saying, hey, you need to look at us too, right? It's getting that fair treatment.
I mean, Lindsay, you have a policy background. I'm curious your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think the professor did a good job of explaining why this is a big deal, but just to reiterate his point that these are, tax dollars we're talking about being spent in public education on esports. And so that's a huge shift in the way that we think about esports programming. But I think it's an important one because I think it signifies that we're finally moving out of the whole esports and gaming is only for the kid in the parents' basement and it's bad for you and blah 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 and all those things that we know to not be true. This is basically the polar opposite of Tipper Gore and the gaming trials of the 90s. And I'm glad that 20 or 30 years later we're finally moving past that and actually for once doing something positive for kids that are interested in gaming. I think it's a great way to spend money, and just like the professor said, any kind of investment in education in this space is really important and exciting. So I highly recommend listening to his take, even though I just paraphrased it.
No, it's a good point. I'll just add before we move on. It's scholarships are much needed, so these these esports students can pay for school when the Canadian government seizes their bank accounts. So it's one of those things. It's just a helpful necessity. Guys, I want to talk about Dr. Disrespect. You guys know how much I love the doc, and he's in the news. Lindsay,
let's talk about him.
Now you're becoming like Jeff on the chair stories.
Yeah,
I've got a chair story just for you, this week. And the headline here is YouTuber Dr. I love that they call him YouTuber. That's also clearly not like a gaming publication, has written this, because I've never heard him referred to as YouTuber Dr. Disrespect.
YouTube probably paid for that content. That's like branded content.
Yeah. YouTuber Dr. Disrespect, banned from Twitch. I love how they have to mention that. I'm not sure how it's relevant to the story. Launches gaming NFTs on Polygon. So Dr. Disrespect's game studio, Midnight Society, has former Call of Duty and Halo employees at its helm. So they launched this game studio, as we've talked about many times before, and now they're releasing 10,000 Founders Access NFTs. That's what they're calling it, for early community members. Basically the NFTs, you pay $50 for them, and it won't give you any pay to win perks, but holders will get early access to game builds, a profile picture usable within Midnight Society games, studio events access, and voting rights on game features. So I'll just read the quote here from the co-founder at Midnight Society. This is not Doc. He says, "We're utilizing blockchain for the access passes specifically because we envision these being a cross-platform membership that will cover not just our first game, codenamed Project Moon, but also any games we publish in the future, whether developed by us or not." So $50 NFT gives you early access and some other perks, some voting rights on game features. You guys think this is genius? It's revolutionary. I mean, the doc has made big promises with Midnight Society that, not that it's going to change gaming, but, has promised that this was going to be a different kind of studio. What do you guys think of the NFTs here being sold? Jeff, maybe start with you. You and I, a shameless plug, host the Meta Business podcast, where we talk about a lot of stories like this. So make sure you go subscribe to that Meta Business podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, wherever. Go ahead.
I'm curious to see what the response is, from kind of the hardcore gaming community, or really, the Doc's fans. Because I saw a lot on, of commentary on Twitter from some of kind of the crypto enthusiasts and people pushing that narrative that, hey, this was super bullish because the Doc's got this great reputation. He's got it within his, at least, gaming community and all these fans. And obviously NFTs and games have been a hot button issue. A lot of, call it, the core gaming audience has sort of repelled them. And maybe this is something where if the Doc is willing to cross the picket line, it's sort of like is the thing that opens the dam. I'm not sure I believe that, but it'll be interesting to maybe track the sentiment of his fan base, whether they are sort of really bullish on this, or if they kind of view this as the Doc selling out. Because, I don't want to paraphrase your take that you had in our kind of private chat, but really this is just, early access by another name. There's nothing super innovative here at all about this. But yeah, so I'm curious what everyone else thinks.
It's hard because I haven't, obviously you guys recorded your episode today, and for our live listeners, it'll be out.
We didn't comment on this, by the way.
We actually didn't talk about it.
Okay. I didn't want to take away from that. I was going to defer to the episode and just, it doesn't change my thoughts here, which is, fundamentally, I don't know. I'm in favor of utility NFTs that reward communities. You know, you have a very digitally minded audience here that has crypto wallets, that consumes their content digitally, that hangs out digitally, and what you're doing is you're offering them exclusive access to a celebrity in their eyes and to be a part of his early access community through a digital asset. And that asset that has been criticized in the past for having no real value is now being given value, because as a holder of that, you're getting, you know, you're getting that founder's access. Bieber, for example, launched like an NFT, and people that own it can potentially enter raffles to meet him at concerts. And you know, you're finding other utilities in these NFTs where it's a lot more than a JPEG. We talked about XQC criticizing NFTs maybe 3 weeks ago, just saying they were kind of cash grabs, that they were mindless. And then we kind of made fun of them because, like, well, what are your all the twit bits and things that people buy to cheer at you? How's that any different? I don't know. I think Dr. Disrespect is one of those big names. I think he's very clever at marketing himself. That's why he's as big as he is. He's one of the first guys, I think, that we saw get that big by wearing costumes and being really over the top with his personality. And I think if he's launching a new gaming studio and a new first-person shooter that he's already claiming is going to beat out Call of Duty, you know, you have to back that up, and you have to continue to get the support and loyalty of your community. Because I think these Twitch creators, a big reason why they're also successful is because they have very loyal communities, right? We had OTK on the podcast 2 months ago saying they're not going to do sponsorships or activations that aren't true to who they are and their core, because their audience wouldn't vibe with and wouldn't follow that activation. So when you think here, what's Dr. Disrespect doing with his audience? Maybe he thinks NFTs is one that
to a game. Like, what are you doing besides creating speculation and sort of just using this buzzword?
I have an answer to that. I want to hear Lindsay's take first.
I do too, and it's the same reason why, you know, sports stadiums have t-shirt nights and dollar beer nights and all the other things, is that you're getting something in return for your engagement with the thing that you're doing. One of the most unique parts of this, I think, is that they're allowing, or that he's putting in a part where people who play the game can actually offer input. And I think we kind of glossed over that a bit, but voting on features and all of that is actually a really interesting mechanism to collect feedback from the community and also give them something like a digital asset in return for that feedback. I think that's really smart. And I think that is actually a very unique way of engaging in the game development process. What I'm a little hesitant on is I still don't know if it's too early for the gaming community to recognize that what this mechanism is and how it's working. And I still think that there's some, I'm I guess a little nervous for him, because I genuinely think this is very cool and very unique, but I'm also a little nervous that it's going to get a lot of pushback and basically saying like, oh, you're paying $50 for the NFT. And it's like, oh no, you're actually paying $50 for early access and the ability to comment on the game. And in return, you're actually getting a digital asset the same way you would get, you know, a free t-shirt or the terrible towel or a Funko Pop or whatever it is that you get when you go to sports games and stadiums. So I think it's actually a good give and take and trade. But I don't know that it's going to be necessarily viewed like that.
Yeah, I hate to say this. I think you guys are wrong on this. And I come to Jeff's question, which is, why does this have to be an NFT? And it really doesn't. Like, it doesn't have to be an NFT. It probably shouldn't be, right? And I think this is a rare misstep for the doc. And let me try and explain why I think he's made a big misstep here. What he's offering here is not new. It's a game pre-order. And all the things that you get with this are things I've got with many, many game pre-orders that I've done over the years, right? Like literally all the exact same features, including input on the development process. Like I was a super early backer of Ashes of Creation, right? They send surveys all the time asking what features. Like, this is not, none of this is new. None of this is novel. None of this is innovative whatsoever. Here's what happened. The doc came out and made very big statements around, this is going to be different, right? This is going to be new. Oh, this is about involving the creators. This is about, right, like, and big statements about how he was going to do something radically different from what everyone else was doing. And so he painted himself in this corner where, like, he can't just do a normal pre-order anymore, right? Like that feels old and like that's been done. And so he had to do this like lame NFT drop, because that's what it is, for it to feel new. That's the reason why it's an NFT, and the only reason. It has to feel innovative. It has to sound. I think what he's miscalculated is the trend in gaming is severe backlash against anything that feels like a pre-order, right? Cyberpunk ruined pre-orders for the entire industry. I don't think that's coming back in any significant way for the most part, especially not first-time studios. And I think also where he's miscalculated is if his game's going to be free-to-play, and who knows, like we don't know if it's a $50 box copy or a free-to-play game, like the people who spent $50 up front, if it's not like a pre-order for a $50 game, if it's just like a pre-order for a free-to-play game, that's going to, I think he will make some enemies there, right? I don't think people will be terribly happy. And so this, I feel like, he forced his own hand to do something that is not natural just for the sake of saying it's new and different. And, if the doc's listening, I don't think he has to be new and different. He just has to make a fun game. And if he's forgotten that already, this project's doomed. And so it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I will just say the only scenario I see where this makes sense as an NFT, and you guys can agree or disagree here, is by limiting the amount of, it's like limiting the amount of pre-orders you could do, right? So if I come out with a game today and I say you can pre-order it for $50, I'm not going to limit the pre-orders, right? I want to sell as many pre-orders as possible. By limiting the amount of pre-orders to 20,000 NFTs, maybe he's banking on the idea that there'll be so much excitement and demand for the game to have the access to these pre-order features will, like, maybe these NFTs will trade at $100 or $150, because if I want to pre-order the game and get early access, now I can't. It's not unlimited. And so maybe he's hoping for a secondary market, like cash grab for these NFTs. But that would be also very lame as a reason, right? Like if he's thinking he's going to make money on the back end of reselling, it feels like small potatoes for a guy who has the opportunity to make a massively successful game if they do it right. So long-winded, but that's I don't think it needs to be an NFT. Sim says, I'm with Jimmy for the NFT. It's true. And then, assuming you agreed with me on that last one.
Did we get Chris's last comment too? Yep.
Chris says, streamers are modern-day boy bands, massive audiences of children and buying power. Question remains, who is Paul's favorite member of NSYNC? Chris, the fact that you even assume that I would be a fan of NSYNC or know any of the members of NSYNC, we haven't spent enough time together.
Oh, so you're saying you're a Backstreet Boys kind of guy?
Oh,
That's
definitely.
what I'm hearing.
That's how I heard. That's what I heard.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I agree, actually. But it's got to be Justin Timberlake. I mean, obviously. That's the only one.
Yes and yes.
Chris, I do agree with the first point, though, that streamers are modern-day boy bands. 100%. That's such a good analogy. Chris says, it's always about adoption. Every NFT has a community. What better ambassador than the Justin Timberlake of streamers? Doc has a fighting chance. Yeah, I mean, he has a fighting chance against gamers, I guess, but I don't think he overcomes the sort of because it's a pre-order, right? And I don't know if gamers will be fooled by the veneer of the NFT. Like if he had just done, I think, unique Doc art to raise money for the game, I feel like that would have gone over better. I maybe I'm wrong, but I think I would have been better with that. Any of you guys would have been better off with that, or think that might have done better?
Yes, I agree with that. Also, I think it's interesting that they're capping it at a fairly low number, right? 10,000 is I would argue pretty low. So, it's interesting, like, how would we feel if this wasn't an NFT and they were just selling a $50 pre-order? We'd probably be more outraged. Maybe we'd be more outraged. Maybe we'd be less.
You wouldn't be outraged, but you'd be like, hey, we don't know if the game's going to be good. Don't pre-order, right? That's kind of the message that gamers have all fallen on. YouTubers have all fallen on, right? Like everyone's just like, wait till the game comes out, see the reviews, then buy it. Pre-orders aren't going away, let's be clear, but there is a dislike of pre-orders among the gaming audience. All right, guys, let's I want to do, actually, before we do the lightning round, I want to do one last story, and then we'll move on to the lightning round here. So before we get to that lightning round, this last story, this is from TechCrunch, and the headline here: game streaming platform Loco raises $42 million to build Twitch for India. So it raised $42 million to build what it has described to some investors as Twitch for India. Hashed, Makers Fund, Catamaran Ventures, Crafton, Korea Investment Partners, Hero Capital, all invested in the Series A. Pre-money valuation of $145 million, according to sources familiar. So that would make it a $187 million valuation post-money. The startup has raised $51 million to date, and they've partnered with several game publishers, including PUBG, Activision-Blizzard, Riot Games for licensing, and secured what they say is first mover advantage. Loco has also amassed 5.3 million monthly active users, 450,000 of whom use the service each day, and about 45,000 gamers stream on the app. So, Twitch for India, 100 million people in India who play Battle Royale games each month, according to this article. What does everyone think of a Twitch for India here in Loco? And, why doesn't Twitch do the Twitch for India, I guess, is the question, right? There's a sort of a business question in there. Lindsay, start with you. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, kind of the same question. My immediate thought is I worry about the potential limitations from the government shutting down different things from outside the country, maybe foreign investment. So perhaps raising money to build it in the country is going to be a little bit easier. I obviously think that there's a market there and there's a growing market. I'm sort of surprised that either the Asian market hasn't reached in a little more with Tencent and Bilibili, and I'm also surprised that the Western Europe market hasn't reached in a little more with Twitch, but they seem to be sitting just at a fulcrum where neither one has been super successful, so maybe building one in-house is the way to go.
Does anyone think this hurts talent? This hurts streamers in North America that may have had, like, if you're a huge streamer, you're Shroud, right? And you've got 50,000 people watching you. 500, 1,000, 2,000 of those people may be from India and are watching you because maybe they have no other options there or no big streamers in India that they can follow locally, or, right? Does by building a platform there, do we get more homegrown talent there and therefore maybe an exodus of sort of foreign viewers from the more North American focused platforms? Sorry, Jeff, I cut you off.
No, it's a good question. I mean, I doubt it will hurt. I think I imagine if you're a brand that's doing an advertisement or deal with someone like, a Ninja or a Shroud or something like that, you're doing some sort of segmentation analysis, and you're probably looking at where, you're using a platform like maybe Stream Hatchet or something, and you're checking to see the demographics and the breakdown of where they are, and you're probably not giving a lot of credit to people in India or maybe in Asia, just because A, your brands aren't maybe even there, and B, the amount of per capita income is just so much lower. So I would imagine, it's not like, hey, 10% of Dr. Disrespect's audience disappears, boom, 10% of his income disappears. Like, I don't think that's probably how it would work. But what I was going to come back to, just the sort of original point, is that it's super common, right, to see the predominant platform in one country not win in others, right? Like the Uber of the US is not the Uber in China, right? They famously lost to Didi there. Amazon is not massive in a lot of different countries, even though it's Amazon. Like, we can't even fathom that they can't beat various different e-commerce players, but they don't in many different regions. So you can sort of run down the gambit of platforms and brands that have been so dominant in one market but just completely lose for many different reasons, whether it's cultural, whether it's talent, whether it's just a structural advantage. And Lindsay had a great point about the government piece. Like, certain governments are not friendly to foreign investment. So I think this is an interesting investment. I think it could actually work.
What do you guys think is the exit strategy for Loco? Like, are they building this hoping that Twitch, in the knowing they need to expand to places like India and China and whatever, will need to buy the local player? Like, is that sort of the strategy, you think? And Twitch ends up being the dominant platform regardless in those countries? Or do you really think that you could build a legitimate competitor that dominates a geography? Because India is a relatively big geography that dominates a geography like India and keeps the Twitches of the world out. Jimmy, any thoughts?
I think it just goes back to Jeff's point that he made, where they don't need to get bought out by anyone. They could stand up on their own. This is this is like our home turf, and we're going to defend it kind of mentality that with the other companies that he had mentioned. So yeah, I thought that was really on point.
Yeah, it just like I wouldn't be surprised if the investors in this deal are going, you know what? We know Twitch is going to need to want to be here at some point, right? Growth in North America will slow eventually, and they'll look elsewhere, and we'll be sort of the perfect place and time to be acquired. I don't know if it's like good for the. I mean, competition's always good for the industry. Like maybe that makes Twitch. This inspires Twitch or YouTube to do more in other geographies, right? Or to be more competitive there. But I also feel like for the streamers themselves, density and concentration of audience is always better, right? Like one monolithic platform feels like it should be the best.
Yeah, true. But then there's a lot of competition, right? Like if that happens, you're going to see take rates come way down for streamers, right? Because if there's only one place the audience is, they lose their ability to do exactly what we've seen them all do in the last couple of years, is like play these guys off one another. So I think I see your point, but obviously there's a counterpoint.
It's true. That's a good counter argument. All right, guys, let's move on. Before we move on and get to the lightning round here, I just want to say a quick word. This live stream is very generously sponsored, supported by YouGov. They produce the absolutely best data on gamers, games, esports fans all around the world. If you're operating in or around the gaming and esports industry, if you're looking to reach that gaming audience, reach that very lucrative esports audience, if you're even interested in sort of learning more about the space and getting real hard data to back up the decisions you want to make there, you need to be talking to YouGov. Incredibly actionable data. Go check out yougov.com. Actually, we have a new link, which I'll put in the chat, but I want everyone to go check it out. There's not much there just yet, but we will start, or YouGov's going to start putting more and more up there. So yougov.com/BOE. So /BOE for Business of Esports. yougov.com/BOE. Go check it out. Show them some love. If you need to reach out to them directly, you want to ask them a question, you have data that you think might be helpful to make whatever case you're trying to make, you can reach out to me, to Jimmy, to Jeff, to Lindsay, any of us, and we will put you in touch with someone at YouGov directly. So thank you to YouGov for their support of the Business of Esports live stream. Definitely go show them some love. All right, guys, let's move on. Let's talk about a lightning round. I think we got to do a lightning round, and you guys will be very excited to know we have the intro from last week. So here's the lightning round. All right, guys, same rules as last week. You got 30 seconds. All right. And I'm going to give you one of these when your time is up, and we will move on. So you got to get your point in fast. All right. And we're going to start with, I think, a fun one here. Let me just present the article. It's Audi will offer you an in-car VR movie and gaming experience later this year. Support for Bluetooth VR headsets is coming. So Audi announced its HoloRide feature in-car VR system. You'll be able to use like the HTC Vive Flow, play games in your car, take advantage of all this service. They're going to create custom content to match the car's driving movements in real time to the content you see in the VR headset, for example. So if the car's taking a right turn, the spaceship in the imaginary world will also fly to the right. If the car accelerates, the spaceship speeds up too. There's some pictures here, which if you're listening to this, you can't see, but it's a person in the back with glasses on, basically VR glasses on. So more gaming coming to cars. What do you guys think of Audi Holo Ride? Jimmy, go ahead.
You're going to have a record number of children throwing up in the backseat of their parents' car. Not all innovation is good innovation. I'm car sick just thinking about this. Like, why? I guess the one saving grace to it is that you won't have the videos of people running into walls with their VR headsets because they'll be strapped into a seat. But this sounds, it just has motion sickness written all over it in my mind.
Lindsay, go ahead.
That was the only thing I could think of as someone who struggles with motion sickness. Is this is basically my worst nightmare. I already struggle staring down at my tiny little phone screen and not getting sick from that. I don't know why we need to keep adding experiences to cars. I would just rather have public transportation where I can comfortably sit my butt down and watch something on my phone in peace and not have to worry about all this.
You guys are such gaming and cars haters, like so much.
Such
so.
a hater.
Jeff,
Ultimate
go
hater.
ahead.
Well, Jimmy and Lindsay both covered the motion sickness element of it. I too suffer from that in cars, so I'm out. But I will say, look out, Tesla. I mean, this changes everything. This turns the whole car paradigm on its head. Short Tesla, Audi to the moon.
I think you're all wrong. I do think gaming in cars, this is the next great location, like where gaming will penetrate. It's in your car. I cannot wait for this. I would buy an Audi just for this. I think it's that exciting. So kudos to Audi for putting VR in cars. Can't wait to see what it looks like. All right, guys, let's talk about this one. Dutch court rules in EA's favor and says that loot boxes aren't gambling. So this overturns a 2020 decision that fined the game publisher 10 million euros. Now they're saying loot boxes are not gambling. Thoughts and comments on this? Lindsay, start with you.
Okay, so they may not be considered gambling anymore, but EA has held on to this thing where it's like loot boxes are like walking into Target and picking up a new toy as a surprise. But I think the thing is, I don't really know that I care what the court says because people just don't like these anymore. And I kind of just wish that they would do something new, do something innovative, and like let go of the damn loot boxes so that we could all stop talking about them and stop having court fights over them. And just like, I'm just ready to be done with loot boxes.
It's an interesting point. Jimmy?
Shout out to all the attorneys on this matter on both sides that made a killing. That's the true loot box, are people's disagreements. It's the gift that keeps on giving. You never know what the court's going to decide, and it wasn't cheap. Having said all that, EA's still probably way ahead here on the legal battle, and clearly it was well worth the fight. So good for them.
Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge win for EA. FIFA Ultimate Team is over $1 billion business for them, so, and really high margin. So I know the last couple of years there's been a lot of talk about will that go away. This clearly shows it won't. I think Lindsay's point is accurate that gamer sentiment has sort of shifted away from the loot box, but not necessarily for the sports games. I think people still like them, and it's a lucrative mechanic. This also has far-reaching consequences to sort of NFT gaming and a lot of what's happening in play to earn. The fact that it's not gambling is a good thing for the whole space, I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, this is going to give EA all kinds of free reign. They're going to take advantage of this. I mean, they're the masters of loot boxes. Chris says, and this is why everyone should have a budget for lobbying, kids. This is true. It clearly works.
You can't lobby a court, Chris.
Well, I'm sure part of it was, public, what do you call, public sentiment, right, around this. Stuart says, evening all. Stuart, welcome. You're just in time for our lightning round.
Best part of the night.
All right, guys, let's, I did promise another Nintendo story, so let's do that Nintendo story. This one says, former Nintendo America president left GameStop's board because leadership refused to explain how they would turn the company around. So this is Reggie fils-aime, who left GameStop's board after serving barely a year. The company leaders wouldn't articulate the company's strategy, he said, and to me that was not acceptable. So what do we make of Reggie leaving GameStop's board saying they have no strategy? Jeff, start with you.
I mean, this is a huge bombshell from a guy who's incredibly well respected in the industry, and also like very even keel. You know, he's not a guy to just be throwing out, you know, firecrackers all the time. Like, he's pretty even keeled in his takes. So the fact that I remember when he joined the GameStop board, it was a huge coup for them because he's obviously a industry luminary. So for him to basically be resigning and saying, I'm resigning because they don't have a plan, should actually be a bigger story, I feel like, than it has been. I mean, that's about as bad of a commentary that I can think of at all, possibly, for GameStop.
Lindsay?
Yeah, I just found a lot of humor in this, honestly. I think that there's been a lot of belief in Ryan Cohen, and I don't want to take away from that, but I don't think that we've seen a lot of changes. And unless somehow Reddit blows up GameStop again, I don't know that we'll see another huge influx of cash. And I don't really know what they're planning on doing with the last one. So I don't think that these comments are off base, but like Jeff said, I do think it's surprising the source of them. And I don't think it bodes well for GameStop, that's for sure.
Jimmy?
I'm surprised Ryan Cohen was allowed to make a comment like this. I'm not sure what he signed to have previously been on the board, but you would think a statement like that. Excuse me?
Reggie, not Ryan.
Oh, Reggie. What I say, Ryan?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah.
What Reggie Cohen? I mean, what did he sign? Or I guess how is he not prevented from speaking out like this against a company that he's leaving? It's so detrimental to them. Otherwise, he's like the one person in the room that wasn't screaming to the moon. The fact that they're still trading at over $86 a share when we all know GameStop is worth a solid $3 a share is beyond me. A year later, after all the meme and Redditors, that pushed the stock to where it is today. But yeah, well, there we go.
This to me is like proof positive of the stupidity of retail investors. Like, the fact that the stock didn't really move on this news is also like somewhat shocking. I mirror Jimmy's comment of, I don't know how we got away with saying this, because usually there is some kind of, non-disparagement kind of clause in there that he can't say this kind of thing. I don't know whoever thought the guy who sold pet food online was going to be the one to turn around the gaming business like that. It started from the beginning with nonsense, and it's not surprising that it's nonsense. All right, guys, let's move on. This one, touchy one, but I think we have to do it in lightning round. Activision-Blizzard disinvited from speaking at South by Southwest due to misconduct allegations. So what do you guys think of Activision-Blizzard being disinvited? Lindsay, start with you.
Yeah, the disinvited part is a little awkward because I don't know. I don't mind when companies are left off of things, especially with all the terrible stories that have been surrounding Activision Blizzard. But it's pretty weird to invite and then disinvite. I don't think that you need to necessarily make a statement, but I think you can also just not support these companies pretty easily, and that makes its own little quiet statement in a way that's much different than this. But yeah, inviting and disinviting, and I don't know the timeline of all this, so I can't necessarily comment on that. But it just makes it kind of a weird news story.
Jimmy?
The timeline mention is worth revisiting because, okay, that would have made sense a few months ago, but Activision's on the up right now. We're getting bought out by Microsoft. There's a lot of allegations around if that deal is going to go through or not, and we covered on last week about some people that were profiting off of insider info, but I think if you're not supporting Activision right now, you're probably on the wrong side of the coin. All the sponsors need to be going back to them and trying to get on their good side, because they're going to make a 5-year run, and you're going to wish that you were more supportive.
Jeff?
Wow. That was a strong take there, Jimmy. I didn't see that coming. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. This is like a third rail kind of thing to talk about, but my concern is more like, what is South by Southwest trying to prove here? Because I do worry once you get into this kind of, I hate to use the cancel culture word because it's just like a loaded word at this point, but what other companies are at South by Southwest, right? Like, are there, companies that work with autocratic regimes? Are there companies that support different things in different states? I don't know. To me, it's like I would rather them have had Activision there. If they want to ask a question about it in the panel, like, hey, you've had some issues in the past. What are you guys doing to help foster a better environment? To me, I think that's a better way of acknowledging that there's the elephant in the room, that there's been problems, and giving them a chance to say, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's how we're fixing it. To me, this felt like them just trying to dunk on Activision and get like a headline for it.
Yeah, Jeff, I agree with you. This is I think South by Southwest should be the place where that dialogue happens, right? Like, have a panel, have something there where you can actually discuss this and people can come up with solutions. Like that's the whole spirit of conferences like that, of festivals like that. The disinvite thing seems weird and totally counterproductive. I don't. It doesn't accomplish much, if you ask me. Like, confront them and deal with it, and push for change, I think would have been the more productive path. All right, guys, one last one. This may be the most important story we do. Obviously, it's our chair story because we're the foremost gaming chair reviewers on the planet. And this is from Engadget, and it's the headline here: toddlers can get their frag on with VTech's baby gamer chair. So it's a baby gamer chair. It has obviously has a seat. It has plastic headphones. It has a little plastic keyboard. It's a baby gamer chair. I don't know what to tell you. Jeff, you're the big gaming chair fan here.
Also, finally, I was going to say, finally, a chair, as the proud parent of a 14-month-old boy who never sits still, I endorse this. If it makes them sit still for a few minutes and stop running around with balls, I'm all for that. For my own sanity and my wife's.
Jimmy?
We have a bunch of new babies in the family, siblings on both sides, and I'm going to order this for everybody, and it's going to be like the coolest gift ever.
Lindsay,
Jimmy,
you're the big tiny chair fan.
Yeah, and
a gaming chair for babies is like the ultimate. I
specifically collect tiny chairs for the tiny people in my life, so this is right up my alley. The only thing I dislike about this is that the feet on it look like freaky human feet. But other than that, I am in with the keyboard and the headphones, and I think that this is really fun and funny.
Lindsay knows a thing or two about freaky feet.
Chris does not like this chair. Chris says gamer chair for babies. This is why there will be a generation beta. I mean, Chris, what's the issue with? Wouldn't you want kids to start young as gamers? I mean, I would think this is what we all want, right? We want to get them gaming from the womb, right? As early as possible.
Listen, I've seen enough tiny plastic basketball hoops to be in favor of a tiny gaming chair.
There you go. All right, guys, that brings us to the end of this week's Lightning. All right, guys, we hope you enjoyed that. I think it was a bit faster this week, which is good. I may even go down to 20 seconds because you guys are all pretty good at getting it within 30 now. Maybe we shorten it to 20. I will say, guys, stay tuned for all the content coming out this week, those 2 podcasts. Make sure to follow us everywhere on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, literally on every platform possible. Go follow the sister podcasts, Meta Business and Meta Woman, because those put shows out every single week. So if you love the content, leave a 5-star rating and review on those shows, guys, so new people can discover them. And just a reminder, guys, the future is fun. Always remember that. We will see you guys next week.